Hi you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jess. So today's video is going to be pretty random, very organic. The last month I've gotten a couple of people reach out to me asking what they should do after a bad interview. These are things I know I would do if I feel like I messed up during an interview, and that's what this video is going to be about. So don't go anywhere and I will be right back. First, ask yourself, how bad was it? What is a bad interview? Like, what's the degree of your screw up? Was it this bad or like this bad? Like, what aspects of the interview did you consider to have gone really badly? Sometimes we might be panicking for no reason. We may think we didn't answer something right, or we shook a little bit and then we came off a little bit off. And then sometimes maybe that's not what happened to the interviewer. So it's all about perspective. And the most important thing for me that I want to say to you today is, no matter how bad you feel like you did during an interview, you must have done something right. Whether it was one thing outside of showing up for the interview, of course, whether it was your introduction, whether it was like the tell me about yourself response, maybe you did that really well, or maybe it was you keeping eye contact, or maybe you had good level of confidence for some good amount of time, or maybe you just answered like almost all the questions perfectly, and then just one question that you didn't do so well is what is like, yeah. So think about it, you must have done something right. It could even be that you asked really good questions and the interviewers were like, oh, wow, smart. It could be anything. So that's the first step. Reflect, do some self-reflection and evaluation. I know I use these words a lot. If you've watched any of my interview videos, you'd see that self-reflection, self-evaluation is super important to me, and I hope that you take it seriously as well. You need to know, like, okay, how did this interview go? Like, really, how did it go? What questions were asked? How did I respond to those questions? What are the areas that I feel like I really killed it? And where are the areas that I feel like, oh, I wish I said this differently? You know, what would you have done differently if you were given a second chance? So first, do that type of evaluation. And don't just think about the question and answer section. Think about the interaction as well. How do you feel like they perceived you outside of the questions that you answered? Was there a good rapport? Now, I know people don't want to spend time on this part of like self-reflection and self-evaluation, but this really is the key to your next action. The question I know that I've gotten a lot recently is like, can I email, the interviewers? Can I say something about my performance? First things first is the asking questions bits during the interview. Did you take advantage of that time? Did you have time to ask questions? Because that is a huge part of the interview process itself. If you're curious to know what are good questions to ask during an interview, I've done a video about that before, so I'm going to put the link in the description box or somewhere here. So make sure to watch that video in case you're preparing for another interview or preparing for an interview. That would come in very handy. These are very intelligent questions that can help turn your interview around. I always encourage that people send thank you messages to their interviewers. Try to send a thank you message whether you think it went really well or you don't think it went well. Just send a nice thank you message. Interviewers really appreciate these types of things. Now, there are 2 tips to your messaging that I'll be sharing today as to how you can leverage the thank you message, when you mess up. It's about the degree of your mess up. So if you messed up where it's like they asked you one question and you know this much about that question, like you had this much to say, but you only said this much, and maybe you didn't feel like you impressed them enough. Now you can leverage a thank you message that you're going to send to them, whether it was one person or 2 persons, like group them together if it was like 2 persons at a time. Send them the message, thanking them, of course, for their time and how much you enjoyed, speaking to them and learning about their experiences at the company. That question you didn't feel like you answered properly, or you didn't give enough information as you would have loved to, take advantage of this thank you message and throw it in there. Say something in the line of, I was rethinking the question that you asked, or I was rethinking or reflecting on this question. Whatever the question is, write it out. Or the question on how I would lead a team, or the question on how I would find talent, or the question on how I would, whatever the question was, you get the point, right? And talk about that, and then reiterate your response that you mentioned, okay? The response that you shared during your interview, reiterate that. And then say, but you forgot to mention 2 important things, 3 important things, and then take advantage of that email to buttress that point. So what you've done is you've thanked them, you've reiterated your interest, and you've also given more information or even clarity as you'd like whatever your situation is. Maybe you've been able to provide better clarity to what you said before, or you added more information, but you've done that all in one email. And you thank them again in the email, and then say you look forward to hearing back about next steps. So this kind of helps, especially if you feel like you gave a good impression overall, but you messed up in these different areas. So that's how you feel at least. So you feel more comfortable knowing that I've shared this information. This is all I wanted to get off my chest. I've done that, and that's that. So if you're in the category of, oh my God, I can't believe I froze. How did I freeze? I know the answer to this question, but this one is like a different degree, of course. So what you can do is allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. So in sending your thank you message, remember that the tips I'm sharing is really about how to leverage the thank you message to get across to your interviewers in a different way. So you can leverage the thank you message the same way, category A, let's call them category A, those that didn't really mess up, but kind of messed up. You basically send your thank you message, the way that a thank you message is sent, and then you throw it in there by being vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. There's a huge difference between being vulnerable and being desperate. So do not act desperate. Please don't ask for a second chance to prove yourself and your worth. First off, you don't even know that they felt that way about you. Maybe they still liked you. Maybe they still would want to move you to the next stage. You don't know anything. So it's always important that whatever you're saying, it's more like an addition versus ruling yourself out completely from the process. Don't assume for them. You can actually say you feel like your nerves got in the way for a certain question, and this is how you would normally answer the question, and then go on to give the response. And then you've also succeeded in sharing that part that you were not able to share. So at the end of the day, it's really up to them, okay? The decision to hire someone into a company is up to the employer, but you feel like you've done your part. Nothing is, these interviewers may have been impressed with you just enough to move you to the next stage, and then they can ask the next set of interviewers to probe further into these areas that came off as the least impressive part of you during that interview. So I hope this video lets you know that it's okay to send a follow-up email after an interview, and it's okay to take advantage of your thank you message, and it's more than okay to be a little bit vulnerable during your interviews, okay? But what is not okay though is to beg or ask for a second chance, because an employer would only hire who they want to hire, and it's not by begging. You need to want to get a job by being qualified for the job. Of course, the most important thing out of everything that I've said is to take the learnings from this. For every situation, there's a learning. So take whatever learning you can from this entire process. Whether you feel like you messed up, the question to yourself is, okay, how do I not mess up next time, versus how do I undo this mess? As always, thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you get to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.